Promises spoken, reality denied. The mask slips, the truth survives. Welcome to your new life, where confusion becomes clarity. Run to freedom. You can make it.
Hey, shalom, shalom. This is Dr. Nabi about Yehuda, bring your intimate truth. It's the truth that you embrace that makes you free. So I'm continuing this conversation on narcissism, narcissistic behaviors, and on this particular video, I want to talk about the discard phase. Now, I mentioned the discard phase last week, but I wanted to talk about a few other things because it is such a broad subject. And I want to give you some examples of what it looked like for me in my discard phase. And so it is really interesting that there's so many levels to this. And as I shared with you before, this is like on-the-job training. So I'm in my car. I'm actually at the beach, and I was just having an amazing lunch, which I may or may not talk about later. So if you have any experiential manifestations, anything going on in your life with a narcissist, you will be able to recognize some of this. And so I also want to hear from you in the comments, like, were you in a relationship like that? Are you currently in a relationship like that? Also, please be aware that you can have narcissistic parents, one or the other, or both. You can have a narcissistic boss. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to be talking about being in a close contact relationship, husband or significant other. So when you're in a narcissistic relationship, there will be evidence of gaslighting, criticism, talking about things like, oh, you're not good with money, or, oh, you're not good, your memory is not good. Now, at the time, probably 2, maybe 3 years ago, my husband would say things like that, like, oh, no, you're telling the story wrong, your memory is so bad. And then I got to the point where I would say, stop saying my memory is bad because it's not. And then he would be like, yes, it is. So, only the devil would always try to make you feel like you're in a place that you're really not. Over time, kind of bending and shaping, manipulating words and circumstances so that you begin to cower and feel like, wow, well, yeah, maybe my memory is bad, or maybe I'm not that good with money, or maybe, whatever the accusation was. And so it is, and I took some notes here, so I don't want to miss anything. So I want to say this: the discard phase is the point where the narcissist partner abruptly withdraws, like all of a sudden. They just stop getting close to you. They just stop being intimate with you. They just stop whatever it is. They just stop. They begin to devalue you, to put you down, or sometimes they just end the relationship, and it's abrupt. It gets to where it's just nonsensical. In my case, I filed for divorce. And the interesting thing is that I filed for divorce. He got arrested. Well, first he got arrested because he threw water in my face and he threatened to slap me. Now, I will note this. There was never any prior threatenings. There was emotional abuse, there was mental abuse, there was and some of my closest friends, I would confide in them saying I don't feel safe. Some of them thought I meant physically, like, oh, is he hitting you? No, because abuse is not just hitting. Abuse is abnormal use, so it's not just hitting. And so I did not feel safe with this man. Everybody outside liked him, thought he was intelligent, thought he was like helpy Helperton. They thought all these great things about him. once upon a time I did until I lived with him. And the interesting thing is that you don't know who you're with until you're literally dwelling within the same house with them, because outside of that, you're not really going to see it. Now this is when they want to marry you. So they go to through the whole love bombing thing, which I have mentioned before. And so it's kind of like a back and forth, and they're putting their best face forward. And then one of the things that a friend of mine and I used to say, and this is across the board, whenever you're dating someone, the representative always shows up. Always. So you never really know who you got until you're actually been in a longer term relationship. So let me read this to you. So it typically follows a cycle of ideation, and I'm talking about the abrupt, like just stops everything. The discard phase. So there's a cycle of idealization. So, well, if it was Hebrew, I could say it. So, and that is the love bombing. That's the love bombing. That's the gifts. That's the compliments. That's the, oh my God, you're so amazing. All of that love bombing. It's a trick, y'all. It's a trick. So then there's the devaluation, there's the coldness, there's the control. Then it culminates into a sudden, very, very strategic cutoff. It's very strategic. And, a lot of times, by the time they get to that point, because they have a need for control, and which makes them feel good, it keeps their dopamine going. By the time they're cutting you off, they don't need you anymore, because guess what? They're most likely already seeing somebody else. Like my husband right now, he's married, but he's in a relationship with somebody else. And the interesting thing is that he has friends that are Christians, but none of them are saying, bro, you still married. What are you doing? What are you doing? He ain't got no friends. That's why. So, so going back to what I said earlier, he would say things like, oh, your memory's not good. But then there would be things that we would talk about, and I would remind him of, like, let's say, oh yeah, I remember when you were, and I'm just using this as an example, like you were shaving and then you decided you didn't want to go back to the professionals and you wanted to get the hair off yourself. And I remember when you bought that wax set and all the yelling you were doing or whatever. And then he'll say, wow, your memory's really good. Well, either my memory is good or it's not. So, and then there would be the picking of the fights, the suddenly getting up, walking out, getting in his car and gone for hours, and would never tell me where he went. Never. And literally we were in a marriage book and he's the designated reader, and they would get to a part about communication or whatever. And so perhaps, I think I remember his get up and walk out thing was maybe 3 weeks prior. So now we're reading, talking about being open, communication, upfront, honesty, sincerity. He's reading all of this. And so I would take this opportunity to say, or to inquire about, well, since they're talking about communication, like, I mean, I remember a few weeks ago you got up and walked out, but you didn't tell me where you went. Could you share with me where you went? No, I'm not telling you that. I'm not telling you that. Completely different person. This is a man who reads the Bible. He would read the Bible every day, but there was no fruit. There's no fruit. When I tell you there's no fruit, there is no fruit. There's no manifestation. There's no evidence other than the evidence of he could quote some scriptures. But, that just reminds me of the devil. Can he quote scripture? So, So here it is. I'm going to read something. They often drop the act, showing more cruelty, indifference, or contempt, and may switch quickly to a new source of attention or validation. The rejection is often swift and harsh, with little empathy for your feelings, as if the relationship never, ever mattered. So I remember going to him and I said, listen, I'm all about communication. And so the best thing to do in a normal relationship is to let your partner know how you feel. Because sometimes they can't guess. You may be a little moody or whatever, but I wanted to make it very plain. And I came to him and I said, I'm not sure what's going on, but I don't really feel safe. And I should feel safe enough that, let's say I had a dumb idea, just a dumb idea. And I came to you, I should feel safe enough to come to you with my dumb idea. And you still be supportive. You could be honest, but supportive. And I should feel safe with you. And he was like, he literally shrugged. If you're telling your partner you don't feel emotionally safe, that is their cue, because you can't feed them their lines. But that is their cue if they have empathy, because the narcissist does not have empathy. That part of the brain is MIA. If you have empathy, then your normal response would be something like, really? Well, babe, what's going on? Like, what do you mean you don't feel safe? Like, have I done something, or what's going on? This is the normal conversation. Somewhere, it may not be the exact words, but it should be somewhere in that realm. But you don't get that. You don't get that at all. So long-term, people may experience anxiety, depression, emotional numbness, disassociation, and even symptoms of PTSD. Why does that happen? Because of the ongoing narcissistic behaviors. It is abuse on another level. And it is sad that you may be having these anxieties, going into depression. You're confused. You have no idea what's going on. You're checking yourself. Well, I mean, did I do something? Did I say something wrong? And then you find that you're walking on eggshells. This is not a healthy relationship. This is not a healthy mindset. It's not emotional stability. So while you're going through that, they're just continuously piling on the doubt, and they're having this need to feed off of whatever it is that is your plight, whatever you're going through, that's feeding them. But when they're going to the discard phase, they don't care. Like, they completely disconnect from you. And I understand that. Well, let me say something. I'm going to say what the discard communicates, what that phase communicates spiritually and relationally. It reveals that the relationship was built on control and supply, as I said before. Control and supply. The supply is you feeling sad, you feeling lonely, you feeling devalued, you feeling criticized. That's the feed for them, right? So this is not mutual care. Your value is based on what you provided, not who you are. Make sense? So the abrupt coldness exposes the emotional immaturity and instability of the narcissistic person, not your worth or your lovability. So let me say this, because some people feel bad because they're not getting the attention. They feel bad because they're not being loved or cared for. And a lot of times people internalize that something must be wrong with me. Beloved, there's nothing wrong with you. This is not really about you. It's the control and supply, the control and supply. And if they can make you feel like you're questioning your memory, questioning who you are, questioning what you bring to the table, that's their feed. And that's what they're getting from you. That doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's just that they have manipulated your environment in such a way where they start to siphon off of your emotional upheaval. But you do not have to put up with it. You don't have to stay there. And, if there's some financial abuse going on where you're in a relationship with this individual and you are really, if you have joint bank accounts or maybe you don't, and he controls or she controls the purse strings, then there's still a way for you to get out. There are organizations that you can reach out to. You know what I had to do? Let me tell you what I had to do. I'm just going to keep it 100. What I had to do to make sure I was taking care of myself, I had to go to the Department of Social Services and go get EBT. That's what I had to do. I also had to collect on my Social Security early. That's what I had to do. Now, I got my car and I did other things while I was, and for those of you that don't know, I was in school for 3 years working on my doctorate degree. And it got to the point where I could not work because I was in the research phase. And when you're in that phase, you don't have a life. You don't have a life. You are studying, you're doing homework. And guess what? I was in 2 doctoral programs, one in one school, one in Liberty University. So I was in 2 schools at the same time. Don't ask me why I was doing that. But it also was a distraction for me. So that's what I was doing. Your situation may be completely
Promises
different.
Spoken. Reality denied. The mask slips. The truth survives. Welcome to your new life, where confusion becomes clarity.